Hello again, friend. Kirsten here, your decision coach for the episode, and we are rounding out our series exploring this little tendency we have to put decisions off and just do them later. And today we're going to talk about a big thing that gets in the way of that: communicating your decision to other people. Has anyone ever struggled with this? Raise a hand or raise an eyebrow if you're driving. So, this is another two by four in the foundation that we've been talking about for the past few episodes. The foundation of this propensity to just put decisions off. I don't want to deal with that right now. I can't do that right now. I have to do it later. And as you keep changing your foundation, you give yourself more options. Remember, we're not arguing for make all your decisions faster and in the moment. We would end up with a lot of donuts that way. We do want you to feel like you have the option to save your future self the time and bother and potential angst and check, do I want to just decide this now and move on with my life? And if part of that decision process involves communicating that choice to someone else, it can be really, really easy to just opt out. Just delay, stretch the choice out another week. Maybe it'll be easier to say this stuff later. Because whoever needs to hear this choice of yours might have thoughts and feelings about it. And they might show those thoughts and feelings to you out loud in your face and make you look at them and listen to them. And then you might have thoughts and feelings about them. And oh boy, one decision mastery skill that comes in hugely handy for changing this overall habit is the ability to release responsibility for other people, their opinions, their reactions, their emotional state. So, in this episode, you're actually going to build up this skill and get better at it. So, by the end of the episode, you get to walk into the world a little stronger. One misunderstanding that is at play here is that it's your job to never upset anybody. If this is a rule you've digested and integrated into your way of being, it's very likely when you come up against a decision that you anticipate will cause thoughts and feelings in other people or one specific person, all of your insides start yelling abort because you're going against this rule. And what that abort signal compels you to do, instead of being honest and communicating the decision you know you're going to make in that moment or when the opportunity arises, is you lie and you say, I'm going to think about it. I can't decide that. I don't know yet. We'll talk about it later. And you drag the whole thing out. This is where, if we were having a coaching conversation, you and I would ask you, are you making this decision with the goal of upsetting this person? And you would probably say, no, I am not, which we're giggling about, but it's very, very important to name. If your agenda isn't to cause harm or negativity, you have to let yourself off the hook for creating it. Now, that doesn't mean let yourself off the hook for caring. All right. This is two separate things. Taking responsibility for somebody's thoughts and feelings is what we're making optional in this conversation today. Caring about their thoughts and feelings, go for it all day long. That's up to you. We're not arguing against that, but we mix these up all the time. We think because I care about this person, I can't do something that they're going to have a negative reaction to because that means I don't care about them. So let's just lay all of this out on the table and get it straight. Our thesis, for the purposes of today's conversation, are that you can absolutely care about someone and confidently stand by a decision you make to which they have a negative reaction, even if you can anticipate that. It can sound a little bit harsh, but I'm going to propose this and you see what you want to do with it. It can be incredibly freeing to look at other people's thoughts and feelings as neutral phenomena, like a weather pattern. You can see them, you might be affected by them, but global warming stuff aside, it's rare that we look at the weather and think, well, this isn't how this is supposed to be. It's almost like it's the weather's business, what the weather's going to do. And we are sometimes going to be affected by the weather. And we can sometimes opt out of that and say, you know what, I'm going to stay inside today. I like the weather analogy too, because it's easy to buy into this idea, I think, that the weather isn't supposed to just always be temperate and pleasant. Even that is really objective, right? One lady's 55 and cloudy is another lady is 75 and sunny, right? What even is pleasant? But I think we can reasonably agree here that there isn't a best correct way for the weather to be most of the time. And it's an unfortunate deviation when it steers away from that norm, that baseline. That's not how life cycles work. That's not how the planet works. It wouldn't guarantee that everything is just happy go lucky and everybody feels great and everything works perfectly if it were this perfect weather every single day. What if we looked at other people's thoughts and feelings about our choices in kind of the same way? What if we stopped assuming everything would just be better if everybody loved our choices, if everybody was happy all the time? What if that's not actually the way it's supposed to be and it's fine? Another thing about the weather that you probably do that you can apply to other people's reactions to your choices is you plan on it. Whether you're going on a big trip or just going out for the day, you probably have an awareness that weather's going to be there. Whether or not you love it or it bums you out terribly or you don't even notice it. What if we adopted the same perspective on other people's thoughts and feelings about our choices? What if we just planned on them being there? Whether or not we like them, they bum us out, or we don't notice them. When we start looking at other people's reactions, kind of like weather patterns, with a little bit more neutrality, with a little bit more acceptance, it makes it easier to not take total responsibility for it. Can you imagine the energy you would waste trying to control the weather? Think about that. How much energy are we pouring into worrying about how people are going to react and trying to subtly nudge their reactions in a certain way so that we can avoid the thunderstorm? Because you know the truth, sometimes weather does feel like a big deal. Same thing with people's opinions, but it doesn't have to be something we constantly dread and are consumed about, just like the weather. It can be something we take a little less personal responsibility for and that we work into our plans a little more consciously. One more thing I just love about the weather analogy is the weather never stops changing. And you know what? People's thoughts and feelings never do either. And this can just be really helpful to remember when we're over focused on what someone might initially think or feel in reaction to a choice that we're communicating. Might they have a negative first impression? Yeah, maybe. Are they going to stay there and live there and start paying taxes from there for the rest of time? No, they're not. It's always helpful to breathe and remember that too. When you're coaching yourself through this resistance to communicating your choice, yeah, someone might have a negative thought. And then 20 minutes later or 20 days later, they might have a different thought about the choice I made. And I can allow that to happen on its own time, just like I allow the weather to change. Okay, now, if we were having a coaching conversation, this might be the part where you interject. Hold up, Pearson. I get that weather isn't my fault and it's not my responsibility to change or manage. Remember, global warming aside. But if I'm making a decision that affects somebody else, then their negative reaction is my fault. That is my responsibility. And then that's where in our conversation, I say, take a deep breath, please. And then remind you of the difference between causation and correlation. Are we affected by other humans? Absolutely. I'm not saying that you live in a vacuum and somebody else lives in a vacuum and their feelings have nothing to do with you and vice versa. Answer me honestly here. Are you directly in charge of how that person reacts to your decision? No, you're not. Say it with me. No, I'm not. How do we know this? I'm going to prove it to you really quickly. I want you to imagine two scenarios. First, I want you to imagine the last time somebody canceled plans on you and you were elated. You were over the moon. Oh my gosh, I didn't want to go to that thing anyway. I don't have the energy to see these people. Now I don't have to make an excuse to get out of it. Yay. And now I want you to imagine the last time somebody canceled on you last minute and your reaction was over the top frustrated. This is so rude. Now I have to change all my plans. I really wanted to go to this. Ugh. Same scenario on paper. The factor that makes a difference in those reactions is you. I can't stress this enough. I'm not saying you're not affected by the person delivering the decision to you. All right. Maybe we should do a whole episode on being on the receiving end of decisions that you don't like and dealing with them. I'll put that on the list. Because tone and wording and intention and your personal history can absolutely all factor into you being affected differently by one person than the other. So we're not denying any of that. But just like the weather, are you directly responsible for it raining today? No, you're not. Are you directly responsible for how this person feels about you deciding to cancel on them last minute? No, they could be elated, they could be frustrated. We're not in charge of that today. And you know what? We never could be. So, foundationally, we're talking about accepting and embracing the reality that it's not natural or necessary for people to love or understand or agree with every decision you make, which just means we're saying it's not natural or necessary for everyone to love and agree with everything everybody else does. And that's a little easier to swallow when you think about the masses. It's harder, though, to get on board with this idea when you're talking about a spouse, a business partner, a best friend, a parent, a child, a mentor you really want to impress or make proud of you. So I'll tell you this, let's go back to our coaching conversation here. Do you agree that if these people are worth their salt in your life, they're going to be more interested in your truth than in the lie you make up to try to manipulate their reaction? If it's your truth that you don't want to help organize the kindergarten graduation, or that you're inclined to hire that candidate over your friend, or you'll be taking Friday off, and you have reasons you like that you stand by, you may still have lots of hesitation to communicate that truth and risk the consequences. So, this is our scenario we're working through. You have a decision that you want to make. You have an opportunity to communicate that decision, or you have the opportunity to give in to the instinct to run away from that risk and delay it or avoid it happening altogether. You're going to use your question from episode 112. What can I decide now? You're going to get super empowered in, yes, I have all the information I need. I can decide this now. This is a decision in the room with me. I'm not waiting on any data. If you need to, you're going to use your criteria that we talked about in the last episode, 113. And you're going to think about, how do I want to make this decision? What criteria is important for me to know this is my best right decision? Get in touch with your reasons so you can really be honest that I'm not trying to cause any negativity out in the world. That's not my goal. Then you're going to notice this fear that comes up of so and so is going to react in such and such bad way. You're going to take a breath like we do, and you're going to ask today's episode's question, which is, can that be okay? Can it be okay if this person doesn't like my decision? Can it be okay that my mentor doesn't agree with my next career move? Can it be okay that the co-op frowns upon but allows the kooky mural that I want to paint on my balcony? Can it be okay if this dad at school thinks I'm selfish for not participating in the fundraiser? There's no right answer. It may or may not be okay with you. That's up to you. That's for another coaching conversation. The point isn't to get yourself to a place where you don't care about anyone's reactions. The point is to make sure you remember you're in charge of deciding if it's okay that they have these thoughts or feelings, and to keep dismantling that old mindset that it's not okay, it's not allowed, you're doing something wrong, abort. Other versions of this question that can help here include, do I have to be responsible for that? Can I let go of needing to control that? Will it be the end of the world if dot, dot, dot? What do I have to gain by being honest? Remember, your brain is biased to focus on what you're losing and risking all day long. So naturally, when we think communicating my decision is going to cause a bunch of risk, all the spotlights go to all the bad things that might happen. But have you considered what you have to gain? Like peace of mind, knowing that you're not going to be carrying this around and have to deal with it later. Confidence in being a person who stands by their truths. An even closer relationship with the people who want to know and love the real you, not the version of you who pretends to like fundraisers. more time and energy because you're not wasting so much of it pretending to be someone you're not around the people who don't want to know and love you for who you really are. They only want to love you if you like fundraisers. Do you have freedom to gain from trying to keep everyone around you happy? Is it possible you have a faster path to what you want available to gain right now just by being honest? So I'll close with this, my friend. Voicing your decision in the exact moment you make it, not always necessarily the best move. Go ahead, take some time to craft your wording. Make it as concise and uncomplicated as possible. But remember what we talked about in strengthening your foundation today. Other people's reactions to your decision could just be like the weather. It could be a natural phenomenon that happens that you are not directly responsible for causing or changing. Ask the question, can it be okay if this person doesn't like my choice? And consider what might you have to gain by being honest. Something we didn't talk at all about, I think, in the content of our conversation today, but it's in the title of this episode, is that it takes courage to communicate a choice. Don't do yourself a disservice by dismissing or smallifying or invalidating any struggles you have with communicating decisions. It's not a bad thing to want people around you to be happy and like your choices. So let it be part of the process to need to go through these bullet points we talked about. Let it be okay to get nervous about contributing to the circumstances that might invite somebody to have a negative reaction. See what I did there? By not saying just causing someone's negative reaction. Then just sweep your mind back through what we talked about today. Do you need to be totally responsible for those reactions? Or can you view them a little more like neutral phenomena happening, like weather? Ask yourself, can it be okay if this person thinks or feels something about my choice? And really consider, what do you have to gain by being honest? Just so you've asked the question, and whatever you decide to communicate it, to not communicate it, to communicate it in a very specific way, you are in charge. So you get to muster that courage and advocate for yourself and continue being the person who's prioritizing you in your life through your choices. Doesn't that sound so good when we say it like that? All right. I hope this helps. I'm going to put that other episode on the list. If there's anything that you want to hear about when it comes to struggling with making, sticking to, implementing, not second guessing, or communicating decisions, let me know. I would love to hear what you want to hear so we can talk about it. You can always reach me on Instagram at KP Coaching, on TikTok at The Decision Coach. And if you're not subscribed to my email list yet, you got to get on that so you can get in on the more in-depth conversations we're having, but applying all these principles to your real life decisions. And so you get first dibs on deals. I just gave $100 off last month for people on my email list for the Decision Mastery Week coming up. So if you want first dibs and special discounts, get your butt on that email list. The easiest way is to go to kirstenparker.com and grab the freebie that's right there at the top of the homepage. It's a crash course in how to say no. You're going to love it. Speaking of communicating decisions. All right, make sure that you check the links in the show notes because Decision Mastery Week is coming up, followed by the Decision Masters program. So these are 2 tiers of work that we can do together to strengthen your decision-making muscles, clear out some old habits causing friction and stress and extra work in your life, and get you solidly on a path to where you want to go for reasons that you like. I can't wait. I'll see you there. Have a beautiful week. Hey, want to find out your decision style? Obviously, go take the decision style quiz. It's in the show notes and at kirstenparker.com/quiz. We all have our style when it comes to making decisions, but do you know how to use your default way of thinking to your advantage? Or do you mainly get stuck in the most annoying parts of overthinking and people pleasing? The decision style quiz has your answers, my friend. Take it right now at kirstenparker.com/quiz.